Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. It is my supreme honor and privilege to be here at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, serving here at the GBC SPT platform on this very, very wonderful occasion of Gaur Purnima. Different series of themes and tracks have been decided, and I have been asked to speak on the internal mood of the devotees while they are actively engaged in Srila Prabhupada's heart and soul preaching mission program. Srila Prabhupada, one time, when he went to one of the temples, his health was very fragile and weak. So therefore, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj did not arrange for preaching programs. He wanted Srila Prabhupada to take rest. So Srila Prabhupada looked to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and said, "There are no programs? There's no preaching?" So His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, "Prabhupada, you're so weak. We want you to take rest." So Srila Prabhupada smiled and he said, "I'm like a cow. Wherever you take the cow's nature is to give milk. So I'm like the cow, the mother cow. Wherever you take me, I am full of the milk of Krishna Katha. So you should arrange something." This is the focus of the preaching. In all our glorious Vaishnav Acharya lives that we have observed in our Gaudiya line, we have seen that this one mission of spreading Krishna consciousness has been the backbone of the mission statement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching movement. Whether it is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or even going back up to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Apani na kaila dharma shikhai na jaye, ei to siddhanta Gita Bhagavate gaye. Apani karimu bhakta bhave angikare, apani karimu bhakti shikhamu shabare. In the Chaitanya Charitamrit, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has said, the internal mood or the entry point into the heart of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna, after performing his very beautiful, mesmerizing pastimes in Dwapar Yuga, started contemplating that I have given all these instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. I have told everyone to worship me, to remember me. Me meaning Krishna. Krishna's thinking that I've asked the whole world to remember me, give their mind to me, worship me with all their heart, chant my holy names, Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi, and to offer obeisances and homage to me. And in this way, they will surely come to me. But what is the most fundamental quality of an Acharya? What is the most fundamental quality of a Jagat Guru? The most fundamental quality of an Acharya is that he preaches by personal example. He demonstrates the principle. Harishori Prabhu very beautifully explains in his Transcendental Diary that when he had the service of being with Srila Prabhupada 24 hours a day, he observed that Srila Prabhupada was actually a breathing Bhagavatam. At every moment, everything that Srila Prabhupada did was actually what Srimad Bhagavatam would have done. A breathing Srimad Bhagavatam. So Harishari Prabhu said that you can either spend 4 hours studying Srimad Bhagavatam or you can spend 4 minutes with Srila Prabhupada. It's the same thing. Because the principles that we study in the Bhagavatam is what Prabhupada used to personally demonstrate. So Krishna, in the same line of thought, was thinking that I have given all these instructions in the Bhagavad Gita and they seem to be very theoretical because I have spoken as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a mentor, as a guide to the whole creation. But I myself haven't practically demonstrated those principles. I wish I myself could walk that path of the Bhagavad Gita. I could chant the holy names of Krishna. Krishna is thinking. Because then what happens is Krishna is walking his talk. Because he spoke in the Bhagavad Gita and now he's practicing it himself and showing the world. And that's how the Acharya is. Sripad Adi Shankaracharya has said, Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Mande Jagat Gurum. That Sri Krishna is actually the original spiritual master for the whole creation. And spiritual master means he who walks his talk. His actions are so loud that they do the preaching. Sometimes people they think preaching is only through the mouth. But His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj very beautifully once said that preaching is actually a 24-hour activity. And sometimes we have to open our mouth because most of the times the preaching is done through personal conduct and example. So Chaitanya Charitamrita explains in the words of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's unparalleled Bengali poetry. He explains that Krishna was thinking, it's high time that I myself, in the mode of a devotee, come and practice the principles of Bhagavad Gita, the instructions that I gave. Now it's the time for me to practice and demonstrate. Because apani na kaila dharma shikhai na jai. The Siddhanta is, Eito Siddhanta Gita Bhagavate Gai. The fundamental Siddhanta that Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam teach, that if we don't practice something, we don't have the right to preach it. So therefore, Janma Sarthaka Kari Karapara Upakar. Bharata Bhumite Haila Manushya Janma Jar. Janma Sarthaka Kari Karapara Upakar. Our Prabhupada, our beloved Srila Prabhupada used to quote this so many times, especially if you hear Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita series of classes. Prabhupada quotes it so many times that the two fundamental duties that all devotees, all followers of Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON we have, and practically everyone in the Gaudiya Parampara, followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One is to perfect our lives, which means to practice the principles properly, to see that taking a very wonderful spiritual shape in our lives and sharing that good fortune with others. That's all that we have to do in this life. We have to practice and we have to share. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually the complete manifestation of the hidden desires of Krishna's heart. Krishna wanted to personally demonstrate, and he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kaviraj Goswami describes, Apani karimu bhakta bhave angikar. Krishna is deciding, I will take this mood of a devotee. Who's the best devotee? Srimati Radharani. So taking the moods and sentiments and complexion of Srimati Radharani, Krishna manifests as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the age of Kali Yuga. And Apani karimu bhakta bhavi angikar, apani karimu bhakti shikhamu shabar. I will teach bhakti to others by personally practicing it myself in my life. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, time and again, would personally demonstrate. He would relish and he would demonstrate and he would instruct others also to taste and teach others. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the two fundamental reasons why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. He says, Prema rasa niryas korite aswadan, raga marga bhakti loke korite pracharan, rasika shekhara Krishna parama karun, ei dui hetu hoite ichhara udgam. That Krishna has two qualities. One is rasika shekhara. He loves to taste mellows of devotion. And the second, parama karun. He is supremely magnanimous, munificent and compassionate. How merciful is Sri Krishna? Lord Brahma writes in the Bhagavatam, Esham ghosha nivasinam utabhavan tvam devarate na cheto vishva phalat phalam tvadaparam kutrapyayan muhyati sadveshadiva putanapi sakulat tam deva devarpita yadhamartha surit priyatma tanaya pranashaya tvatkrite. Lord Brahma is saying, Krishna, how kind and how merciful are you? That Putana who came to murder you, you gave her the eternal position of being the mother, the eternal nurse in the spiritual world. And you didn't think that it was an act of compassion. Sadveshad iva Putanapi Sakulat Tvam Deva Devarpita. You made her Dhatri. You made her the position, you gave her the position, you benedicted her with the position of being the eternal mother. And you thought this was perfect, this was apt. You didn't think it was an act of compassion. That's how merciful Krishna is. So the two qualities of Krishna are he's the connoisseur, he's the taster, he's the relisher of rasa. Rasika Shekhara Krishna. And the second quality is Parama Karun. He's supremely magnanimous. As a result of which, these two qualities of Krishna led to the two reasons of Mahaprabhu's appearance. What is that? Prema rasa niryas korite aswadan. Because he's Rasika Shekhar, because he's the taster of all different kinds of flavors and juice of devotion. He came in this world in the mood of Radharani to personally taste the mango fruit of Krishna Prem. Krishna Prem is the biggest achievement. Prema dhana bina byartha daridra jivan. Without that fruit of Krishna Prem in our life is poverty stricken. These are the words of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So because Krishna is the relisher and the taster of rasa, he came to taste Krishna Prem himself in the mood of Radharani. And because he's supremely merciful as the second quality, he desired and decided to share the taste with everyone around. This is why we see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that preaching mission is very, very important for all of his followers. You can see that Mahaprabhu always had a soft corner for those who were preachers. Always soft corner. Who is the dearmost associate of Mahaprabhu? Nityananda Prabhu. Why? Because Nityananda Prabhu would go to those places where Mahaprabhu did not preach. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu tells Nityananda Prabhu that actually between you and me, you're a better preacher. Mahaprabhu tells Nityananda Prabhu. Why? Because I go and speak to the Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I speak to the Keshav Kashmiris, I speak to the Prakashananda Saraswatis. But you go to those places where I can preach. Chaitanya Bhagavat describes Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur says, Yadyapi amar nitai surabadi jai, tathapi amara hoy Nityananda Rai. That even if my Nityananda Ram, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur is writing, even if my Nityananda Ram is found in liquor store, let's say he's found with a woman, he's found in a place where he should not be. Vrindavan Das Thakur says, please don't misunderstand him. He's gone there only to uplift them. Tathapi amara hoy Nityananda Rai. Lifetime after lifetime, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur says, there is no one as magnanimous, as compassionate, as munificent as Sri Nityananda Ram. In fact, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat, he says, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He is the Lord of my Lord. And my Lord is Nityananda Ram, and his Lord is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, I accept Nityananda Ram as my Lord because he goes to the places where there's most need for upliftment. So he says, if Nityananda Ram even marries someone, a girl's hand, he accepts someone, or he's found in a liquor store, he said, please don't misunderstand. He's gone there only to preach and uplift them. This is the position of Nitai. This is the position of Nitai. And Mahaprabhu has so much love for Nityananda Prabhu, so much love. When Mahaprabhu tells Nitai that you are a greater preacher, Nityananda Prabhu says, Nityananda kahe ami deha tumi pran. Hey Mahaprabhu, you are saying that I am a better preacher, but I am like the body. The body moves only because of the presence of the spirit soul. If I am the body, you are my soul. You are our inspiration. So Nityananda Prabhu is very, very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very, very dear. One time in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is described something very fascinating. Look how wonderfully Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expresses his love for Nityananda Ram because he's a preacher. One time, one man comes to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and very humbly, very, very humbly, with the right mood, the right conduct, he offers obeisances to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he mentions to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, O Gauranga, I have complete faith in you. I have surrendered my heart, mind, and soul at your lotus feet. But I have some concerns and some doubts in my mind about Nityananda Prabhu. He says he's a great preacher. He's a very great preacher, but sometimes his activities are so transcendental that they are bewildering to the material mind. So please, O Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so this person with a lot of humility, he submits and he tells Mahaprabhu that you please help me. You please uproot. You please completely dispel these doubts in my heart. This happens in Jagannath Puri. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks a very wonderful history, very, very wonderful history to this man. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that one time when Brahmaji was with his grandchildren, Brahmaji's grandchildren, they, because of their mischief, because of their naughty behavior, they started laughing when Brahmaji was displaying some affection and running behind Mother Saraswati. The grandchildren of Brahma, they started laughing and mocking and joking. As a result, what happened? Because of this offense at the lotus feet of Brahmaji, they were born as sons of demons. They were born to Kala Nemi, who was the previous incarnation of Kamsa. And after being killed in that life, all those children, all those grandchildren of Brahmaji, after being killed in the hands of Kalanemi, next life, when Kalanemi appeared as Kamsa, all of them appeared in the womb of Mother Devaki. All of them came as the six children of Devaki, and their sins continued. So in that life also, they were mercilessly killed by Kamsa Maharaj, although they were sons of Devaki. And the story we are all aware of in the start of Krishna Leela, how Krishna was the eighth child and Balaramji was the seventh, and the first six were actually the Shadgarbasur. They were the six children, right, who were killed. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, after being killed like this for two consecutive lifetimes, all these children went to hell. And they were all struggling there. They were being tortured and they were being troubled there. But it so happened that Krishna, in his Krishna avatar, when he served his spiritual master, Sandipani Muni, and he was about to graduate, Sandipani Muni, the teacher of Sri Krishna, requested that if you want to offer some Guru Dakshina, which means if you want to offer some reciprocation from your side, I have lost one son of mine. Can you please revive my lost dead son? So Krishna said, okay. He went to Yamalok, and there's a conversation given where Krishna is speaking to Yamaraj. And Yamaraj says, well, I took the son only for the reason so that you can come and give me darshan. So Krishna took that one son back and gave the son back to Sandipani Muni, his teacher. Now when Devaki Rani, Krishna's mother, got to know that Krishna has the power to even go and speak to Yamaraj in Yamalok and bring back the dead son, Devaki Rani said, if you can do this for your teacher, why not do this for your mother? Your mother has lost 6 children. Can you go back and get all my 6 lost sons back? Krishna said, okay. So Krishna went back. And then he got all his 6 brothers back and gave them back to Mother Devaki. And as they drank the breast milk of Mother Devaki's loving heart, they all got liberated. Because Krishna had drunk the breast milk of Mother Devaki, so that was actually prasad. And when all 6 children came back and they accepted the prasad from the heart of Mother Devaki, they all got their eternal spiritual forms and they all went back home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this whole history to that Brahmana and tells him, this is the sin of misunderstanding a great soul like Brahmaji. The 6 grandchildren, they, for fun, for their mischief, out of their notorious, nefarious, spontaneous, and very restless nature, they were joking and mocking on a great personality like Brahmaji. And the effect of Vaishnava aparadha is such that they had to go through so many consequences and repercussions. Then Mahaprabhu tells, Nityananda Ram is very, very dear to my heart. He preaches and gives Krishna Bhakti far and wide. In fact, he is the root of the tree of Bhakti. Bhaje Nityanandam, bhajana tarukandam niravadhi. Nityananda Ram, according to Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur's Nityananda Ashtakam, some even comment that this was actually written by Prabodhananda Saraswati. So there is some talks about the authorship of this very wonderful composition. But either way, they are great, wonderful Vaishnava acharyas. And it's their opinion that Bhaje Nityanandam, I worship Nityananda Ram. Bhajana Tarukandam Niravadhi, I eternally worship Nityananda Ram, who is actually the root of the tree of Krishna Bhakti. And therefore, he's the greatest preacher. We could say Krishna is a rain filled monsoon cloud, right? Krishna is the main rainful monsoon cloud. Or we could give another example, another analogy. We could say Krishna is like the ocean. Let's go with that one. Let's say Krishna is like the ocean. We always sing it every morning. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu. He's the ocean of compassion and mercy, right? So let's say Krishna is the ocean. Krishna is compared to the ocean. But if you're thirsty, what happens? If you're thirsty, we can go to the ocean every time, right? We can go to the ocean and drink water. And even if you try going, the water is salty. So what happens? By the water cycle, by the effect of the water cycle, let's say by the power of the intense rays of the sun, the water from the ocean evaporates and forms clouds. So we know in Krishna Leela, Krishna is the ocean, and Radharani's father's name is Bhanu, Vrishabhanu. And in Sanskrit, the word Bhanu also means the sun. So it's very metaphorical and philosophically in tune with Kaviraj Goswami's conclusions. So we could say Krishna is the ocean of compassion, but when the intense hot sun rays of Radharani's devotion attract the sun, the ocean, then the ocean water evaporates to form the cloud. So we can say now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the cloud. So Krishna is the ocean, and the water of Krishna's compassionate ocean gets evaporated by the heat of the sun rays of the sun, who's Radharani, right, in this example. And by that water cycle effect, the clouds formed as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we can see now that the clouds are more merciful than the ocean, because for the ocean, we have to go to the ocean, right? We have to go to the ocean. But for the clouds come to us. When we are thirsty, we can go to the ocean, but the water is salty. It's difficult to approach. If you start drinking that salty water, then it will damage our kidney. We can't survive long with that. So similarly, trying to absorb and directly jump into the pastimes of Krishna are like trying to drink saltwater ocean. Not that Krishna's pastimes are salty, they're sweet, because we are conditioned in this world, it somehow tastes bitter. We are misunderstanding, and there's always some questions that people raise about the pastimes of Krishna. If he's God, why does he steal, and why does he speak lies, and so on and so forth. So Krishna's pastimes, let's say, can be compared. They are actually an ocean of sweet water, but because of our conditioned state, it seems salty. And when we are thirsty, we have to approach the ocean. But by the effect of the rays of the sun, the ocean water becomes transformed into the cloud, and the cloud comes and pours water. How kind and how merciful. And you can see that that rainwater is sweeter. So if the ocean is Krishna and the sun rays are the mercy or the devotion of Radha, then the evaporation caused is the link between Krishna Leela and Gaur Leela. The cloud is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His mercy is the sweet water. His pastimes are the sweet water, which are very, very easy to digest, gulp, and understand and learn from. But however, we see, it doesn't rain all the time. So what are we going to do when it's not raining? Oh, that's why we need permanent connection of that water through pipes into our homes, so that whenever we want, we can just turn the tap and we get the water. So this is where the role of Nityananda Prabhu comes. If Mahaprabhu is the rainwater, it is Nityananda Prabhu who is the pipe connecting to all the homes, so that whenever, wherever, whoever, whichever personality from whatever background wants to access the water of the Lord's mercy, it is always available. So if Krishna is the ocean and the sun is Radharani, then the evaporated cloud formed is Mahaprabhu. The water coming from the cloud is Gaur Nam, Gaur Dham, Gaur Rupa Gun, Aparada Nahimani, Tarite Nipun, the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And Nityananda Ram, as the excellent preacher, the outreach preacher, is making those pipes and making Mahaprabhu accessible to every home. Jare dekhe tare kahe danta trina dhari. Nitai would go and knock at every door. Shuno, shuno, Nityananda, shuno, Haridas. Namero Mahima Jar Korila Prakash. Kaviraj Goswami has explained, Jaya, 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 Jaya Haridas. Namera Mahima Jar Korila Prakash. All glories to Nityananda Ram and Haridas Thakur, the two excellent outreach preachers of Mahaprabhu, who are carrying the mercy current of Mahaprabhu to every home, every town and village. Nityananda Prabhu would knock the door, and when they would open, he would roll at their lotus feet, at the dust of their lotus feet, and beg them, please chant the name of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu told Nityananda Ram to go and preach the names of Krishna. Mahaprabhu's instruction was, Prabhu Ragyay Bhai Mage Ei Bhiksha, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Siksha. Mahaprabhu instructed Nityananda Ram, please go and speak about the glories of Krishna. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he reconciles that Mahaprabhu told Nityananda Ram to preach about Krishna, but Sri Nityananda Ram would go and preach about Gauranga. Why? Because Krishna Naam Kori Aparadera Vichar. Because when someone chants the name of Krishna, automatically there is considerations of offenses and mood and intention and how selfless they are or how selfish they are, etc. The hidden ulterior motives behind the chanting process are all considered. However, Chaitanya Nityananda nahi e sab vichar, naam le prem de bahe ashrudhar. Kaviraj Goswami has explained. However, the names of Mahaprabhu are not like that. Even one with all material desires in their heart, akama sarva kama moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Anyone from any background with any intention, if they chant and take shelter of the names of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, very quickly they will be cleansed. We can read in Adilila chapter 8, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada writes a very, very brilliant purport in this connection. Srila Prabhupada explains that in a conditioned state, we should take more shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu than even Radha and Krishna. Because by taking shelter of Gaur Nitai, the offenses in the heart will be cleansed. And therefore, Prabhupada even relates, this is why we are supposed to chant the Panchatattva Mahamantra before we take shelter of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Nityananda Ram, instead of preaching about Krishna, although he was instructed, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Siksha, he went around speaking, Bhaja Gauranga, Kaha Gauranga, Laha Gaurange Namare, Je Jana Gauranga Bhaje, Se Hoy Amar Pranare. Nitai went around speaking to everyone. And what did he say? He said, just chant the names of Mahaprabhu. Just worship the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and completely give your mind, heart, and soul in the service of Sri Gauranga. Chaitanya Seva, Chaitanya Gao, Lo Chaitanya Nam, Chaitanya Je Bhakti Kare Sei Mor Pran. Nityananda Prabhu said this, that just serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and chant the names of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I promise you, I will accept you. And if someone is accepted by me, Mahaprabhu cannot reject. Mahaprabhu cannot reject. This is very, very important principle. Nityananda Ram, he had the sensitivity of knowing whom he's preaching to and how wonderfully to bridge the instruction of Mahaprabhu to the requirement of the audience. And because he was a preacher of this caliber, he's the dearest associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we say the example that Mahaprabhu is like the sun, then immediately we say Nityananda Prabhu is like the moon. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahoditau Gaudodaye Pushpavantau Chitro Shandau Tamonudau. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has said, how glorious is this, that the horizon of Navadvip has seen the rising, not the rising of the sun and the setting of the moon, or the rising of the moon and the setting of the sun, but this is astonishing. This is astonishing astrological and astronomical connection that in the sky of Navadvip, at the same time, the sun and the moon are rising. Mahaprabhu is the sun and Nitai is the moon. Very, very beautiful, because you can see that the sun is the origin of light. And when the light of the sun gets reflected, then the moon gives that light to everyone. So that's how Nityananda Ram is. Mahaprabhu is Mahaprabhu, and his sun rays of instructions are carried by the moon, and that moon, through moonbeams, gives it to the whole creation. Srila Prabhupada was once walking. This pastime I heard from Praghosh Prabhu. Very, very beautiful in this connection. I was just reminded. Srila Prabhupada was walking, and it was evening time on the shore of the ocean. And suddenly Srila Prabhupada paused, looking at the moon, and he said, "The moon is made out of cold flames." So then everyone around was naturally bewildered. They said, "What is this concept, Prabhupada? What is this concept of cold flames?" So Srila Prabhupada said, "Look, the moon gives light. So therefore, definitely there are flames there, because it's fire which gives light. So there are flames because of which we get light. So there is definitely flames in the moon. But because Narottam Das Thakur has compared the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu to be as soothing as millions of moons, therefore we can understand they are not hot flames but cold flames." So Praghosh Prabhu explains that everyone was so amazed that Prabhupada's first step of logical presentation of even things like the moon was Narottam Das Thakur's comparison of the moon to the lotus feet of Nitai. How beautiful. So Nitai is like that. Koti Chandra Sushitala. By his preaching, he's giving the cooling moonbeams of protective embrace to all those who are burnt and scorched by the summer heat of distress in this material world. Also, we can see it is the moon which gives taste in the crops, in the fruits, in the different vegetables. So it's Nityananda Ram as the outreach preacher who's giving everyone the chance to taste the different crops and fruits which are the limbs of bhakti. You see, people in general, they have no taste to chant and hear and remember Krishna. But then when an outreach preacher from the movement of Mahaprabhu's preaching mission, on behalf of Nityananda Ram, as a representative of Nityananda Ram, goes from house to house and preaches, you can see automatically they start wearing kantimala, putting tilak, and reading Prabhupada's books and starting to chant 16 rounds, and they even get initiated and serve very actively. So those who didn't have taste in the crop or the fruits and the vegetables of the limbs of bhakti, by the preaching of this outreach preacher, who's as a representative of Nityananda Prabhu, is like the moon. His moonbeam like outreach preaching compassion is what is giving them taste in the limbs of bhakti, which are like crops. So Nityananda Ram, being the moon, is very dear to the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's like the sun. Preme matta Nityananda kripa avatar, uttama adhama kichu na kare vichar, jai aage pade tar kare uddhar, preme mata Nityananda kripa avatar. Our acharyas have described Nityananda Ram has one more connection with the moon. And what is that? The moon gives his moonbeams indiscriminately to one and all. He gives it to everyone. He gives it to one and all. So similarly, Nityananda Ram is like that. As the moon, to all those who are struggling in the dark night of avidya. You see, it's easier to navigate during the day than to move around at night. At night, when there's no light, it's difficult. You can't see things as they are. But during the daytime, yes, we can see things as they are thanks to the light of the sun. So similarly, those who are enlightened, they are like under the sun rays. Those who are advanced Vaishnavas, they are like directly under the sun rays, the daylight of clarity and no confusion. They have viveka buddhi. They have the power of discrimination. But those like me, in this dark age of Kali Yuga, in the dark night of anarthas, in the dark night of no other hope, in the dark night of ulterior motives, in the dark night of distractions, in the dark night of a short lifespan, in the dark night of the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance, who's going to give me light to see things as they are and understand the ultimate reality? It is the moon called Nityananda Prabhu. Through his moon beams of the outreach, preaching, compassion, he gives the pathway to a lost soul. Someone who's lost in the night of this world, by the light of the moonbeams, they can find their, not just their path, but they can also find their destination. So similarly, Nityananda Ram, who's the root of all outreach preaching, he teaches us that those living beings who are bewildered and completely lost in the dark age of Kali Yuga, like the moon, we should go, and through the moonbeams of what we have gained through the parampara, we should give them the path and the destination of where they should go. We can see that there are two kinds of preachers. One who does bhajan, it's called Bhajananandi. And the second who preaches, who's called Goshthanandi. Every Goshthanandi must be a Bhajananandi, which means to preach, you have to taste. So Bhajananandi are those who taste, but they only taste and taste and taste. And out of their genuine, natural humility, they say, what can we preach? What can we give others? An example of that could be Srila Gaur Das Babaji Maharaj, always considering himself to be fallen and unqualified and completely poverty-stricken and destitute, natural humility. So he never preached outside, but of course he gave the world an immortal signature. He signed an immortal signature on the paper of eternal preaching. And what was his signature? His disciple, Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So there are those who are Bhajananandis, they are chanting the holy name, living in the Dham. But then there are those who are not Bhajananandis, but they're Goshthanandis, which means they are Bhajananandis who decide to share the good fortune with others. And the best example we can think of is Srila Prabhupada for us. Srila Prabhupada lived in Vrindavan. He did bhajan like nobody else did. Nithyananda Das Babaji Maharaj, one of the associates of Srila Prabhupada, he lived very close to Srila Prabhupada's Radha Damodar temple. So Nithyananda Das Babaji Maharaj explains that I have my birth in Radha Kund and I have been living all my life in Vrindavan. But I never, ever, ever saw a sadhu like Srila Prabhupada, who did bhajan like Srila Prabhupada. He said, therefore, naturally, when I got to know that the international revolution of outreach preaching, where everywhere, everyone at all times is chanting Hare Krishna, even people who are not born in a Vaishnav background, Nithyananda Das Babaji explains, they were taking up to the process of chanting. Vrindavan was changing. All around the world, people with tilak and kantimala. And he said, who did all this? Who is the leader, the pioneer of this evolution, this revolution, this, we could say, this blast of ecstasy? It was Srila Prabhupada. And he said, it wasn't astonishing for me because when I saw Swamiji do bhajan, I could understand he's made for something very big. Something very, very big. So when we see Srila Prabhupada's preaching mission, we should not underestimate his inner personal bhajan. Srila Prabhupada's first disciple, Dr. Acharya Prabhakar, he accounts this very famous story that many of us are aware. He explains that one night he heard this loud chanting of the holy names, and there was loud thumping of the feet on the ground. So he went to the temple and he saw it was midnight. It was like 1:30 at night. He went to the temple and he opened the doors. And there he saw Srila Prabhupada singing and dancing in ecstasy with tears rolling from his eyes. The caliber, the character of Dr. Acharya Prabhakar was such that he was a Sanskrit scholar. He was a very philosophical person, very grave in character, very poetic in personality. And he never spoke without a reason. Every word was properly measured. So when this reflection, this personal interaction comes from Dr. Acharya Prabhakar, the first disciple of Srila Prabhupada, it speaks a lot. It's a very deep point. So he explained, I saw Srila Prabhupada jumping and dancing in ecstasy with tears in his eyes. And he had this big kadamba flower garland around his neck. So I asked Srila Prabhupada, May I know what's there in your heart? And Srila Prabhupada did not answer. But when Dr. Acharya Prabhakar, he insisted and he really wanted to know, Srila Prabhupada said, I was trying to chant with all my heart. And as I tried to chant with all my heart, tears streamed from my eyes and Krishna appeared before me. And Krishna was wearing this garland of unfading, completely blossomed and bloomed fresh Kadamba flower garland from the spiritual world. Krishna was wearing this. And Krishna appeared before me. And Srila Prabhupada explained, Krishna felt so much affection for me as I was feeling affection for him. Krishna took that flower garland, the Kadamba flower garland, from his neck and offered it to me. And as I reached out to touch the lotus feet of Krishna, Krishna disappeared. So this garland is actually coming from the spiritual world. Dr. Acharya Prabhakar explains that this was really, really very, very astonishing for him. Why? Because in Jhansi, back then in the city where this is happening, he said, I never found Kadamba flowers. And even if I had found some, they were in the size of a golf ball. But the ones that Prabhupada was wearing was in the size of a tennis ball. So I was really curious to know. And when Srila Prabhupada said this, he explains, it only deepens my understanding of the internal mood of Srila Prabhupada's personal relishment. He's relishing Krishna consciousness. Many times Srila Prabhupada would hear his own classes. We have heard of Prabhupada reading his own book, the Krishna book. But many times Srila Prabhupada would hear his own tapes, his own classes. He would give the Bhagavatam class and then come and play it in the room. How eager is Srila Prabhupada to hear Hari Katha? The point to be noted is, before that, there were no audio recorders. It was Srila Prabhupada's generation from where technology started booming and we had video recording and audio recording. We have no audio recording of Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time. So before Prabhupada's time, there were no concept of recorded classes. And when Srila Prabhupada was around, nobody else was speaking Hari Katha because everyone was grasping and drinking the juice. So Srila Prabhupada was eager to hear himself, relishing Krishna Katha. So he would play it and he would hear. And one time when one disciple was in the room, Prabhupada said, wasn't that a good point? So the disciple said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And then he thought for a while and then he asked Srila Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, I would really like to know your mood behind you hearing your own class. And Srila Prabhupada said, actually, you're thinking that I spoke. But actually, this class was spoken by Sri Krishna. I was simply the medium. So I want to hear Krishna Katha. I want to hear the words of Krishna. This is how much relishment Srila Prabhupada had. So for outreach, it's important that the devotee personally relishes first. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu very, very beautifully puts this. Very poetically, he explains that preaching means distributing the overflow. Let's say you have a cup, you fill it with water up to the brim, and now you start filling it further. What happens is it topples and the water starts overspilling. It's not overspilling before that. Once it's filled up completely, then it starts overspilling, which means the outreach devotee is he who's filling up the cup of his devotion by hearing from the spiritual master, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, by personally practicing the process himself. And then when he finds that joy in his heart, then it spills. And that distribution of the overspill is outreach. And Nityananda Prabhu was doing that. And everyone in our line has been doing that, tasting and sharing that good fortune. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur would do that. He had his own dinacharya, his own life schedule, daily schedule, a lifestyle. And then also he wrote that same year when Srila Prabhupada appeared, 1896 was the year when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote his book in English, Sri Chaitanya, Life and Precepts, and sent it to the McGill University in Canada. So it's fascinating. It can be coincidental that the year that the first Gaudiya Vaishnava book went to the Western world was the year when the messenger who would take it, Srila Prabhupada, appeared, 1896. So we must understand till now, to recapitulate what we have been discussing. First point is outreach is supremely, supremely important. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers means sharing the good fortune with others. Tumiha karaha bhakti shastrera prachar mathurai lupta tirtha karaha uddhar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, I want all of you to write books. I want all of you to build temples and excavate lost places in Vrindavan, and also through personal example, teach the world what Vaishnav conduct is. यद्यपि तुम्ही होय जगत पावन तुम्हा स्पर्श पवित्र होय देवमुनि गण तथापि भक्तेर स्वभाव मर्यादा रक्षण मर्यादा पालन होय साधुर भूषण. Srila Sanatan Goswami, such a great Vaishnav, such great spiritual master of the whole world, but through his personal conduct of humility, when he would display how he would put himself very low, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced and he said, you are no low, you are the highest. By touching your lotus feet, even demigods get purified. Even demigods get purified. So the nature of pure Vaishnavas is that they relish, they share it through preaching, and as they're preaching, they don't see themselves as the doer. So 3 things we have mentioned till now. 1, the best way to please Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to preach his teachings. Gauravani Pracharine, right? Prabhupada is called Gauravani Pracharine. He distributed. So the first thing, the most important service in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching mission is to preach, to share this good fortune with others. The second point we mentioned is that preaching is the distribution of the overflow. Or you could also poetically say preaching is the belching of one's bhajan. When we taste the juice, when we eat, then we can belch the taste of what we have eaten. So preaching is the belching of one's bhajan. So what we taste, out of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment we share. So we preach, second point, but we don't compromise personal nourishment. And third point, as we preach and as we share this good fortune, we almost become like salt. We want to add taste to the service, but we want to be invisible. We don't want to take the credit. We want to be like, you can see in a telescope, it's just series of transparent, compassionate lenses. And what do? They don't take credit. They're just transparent. And at the same time, they're all magnifying, which means the object is gotten closer to our vision. So that Krishna, who's far away, the magnifying lenses of the parampara, they're all transparent via medium, which means they're not opaque. They don't stop the vision. They're just completely humble and they don't take any credit. Selfless. They just want to be instruments. Nimitta matram bhavashavya shachi. And yet at the same time, they're magnanimous because that object, which is far away, they magnify and bring it in the purview of our sense perception. This is how selfless Srila Prabhupada was. Srila Prabhupada was asked about his preaching. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, well, I am not a good preacher. He said, my Guru Maharaj is a greater preacher. He said, in an era where there were no airplanes, my Guru Maharaj walked around the whole of India and established 64 Gaudiya Muths. If I could give him an airplane, he would set the whole world on fire. Prabhupada said, I tried preaching in India, but I couldn't. But my Guru Maharaj established 64 centers without the airplane. So he said, all credit goes to my Guru Maharaj. Even when American boys and girls would come, Srila Prabhupada would say, I am so impressed by your book distribution. And what is giving pleasure to my heart is that my Guru Maharaj is showering 1,000 times more mercy than I am showering onto all of you. So Prabhupada always saw like that. This is the third point. And the fourth and the concluding point is, what is the internal mood of this outreach? What is the internal mood of this outreach? This could be little philosophical, but that's the sweet conclusion to our discussion. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes, Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vaya Naiva Swadhyo Yenad Bhuta Madhurima Kidrisho Va Madiyaha Saukhya chasya mad anubhavatah kidrisho vetti lobhat tad bhavadhya samajani shachi garbha sindhu harindu राधा कृष्ण प्रणय विकृतिर लाधिनीर शक्तिरस्माद एकात्मानव अभिभुवि पुरा देह भेदम गतौ तौ चैतन्याख्यम प्रकट मधुना तद्वयम चैक्यमाप्तम राधा भावद्युति सुवलितम नवमी कृष्ण स्वरूपम. In the Mangalacharana verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes that Krishna, he who knows everything, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhutani cha bhavishyani mam tu vedana kaschana. Abhijñah swarat. He knows past, present, and future of every living being. Natve vaham jatu nasam natve neme janadipa. Nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayamataha param. Nobody knows their past, but Krishna knows. Krishna says in the Gita and in the verses from the Bhagavatam. He knows everything. But one thing that Krishna doesn't know is what it feels to be a devotee. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that Krishna developed 3 desires when he interacted with Srimati Radharani. The first desire was he wanted to know the depth. Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisha. How deep is the oceanic heart of Srimati Radhika? Srila Rupa Goswami has explained when Srimati Radharani cries in separation from Krishna, the waters of the Jamuna, which are actually a river, they become like an ocean mixed with the tears of Srimati Radharani. There are tides caused not just in the heart of Srimati Radharani, but in the ocean of the Jamuna. The fishes start crying, the birds start to cry, the bumblebees are rolling in the sand on the dust of Yamuna and crying. Even demigods shed tears looking at Radharani's tears of separation from Krishna. Even Lakshmi, who's massaging the lotus feet of Narayana, is touched by the thunderbolt of Radharani's emotions. Rupa Goswami has written all this in Vidagd Madhav Natak. And at the same time, Radharani goes through all the 8 symptoms of ecstasy. Kanchana sadrisha deha arunavasan pulaka ashru kampasveda tahate bhushan. Her complexion changes, hair stands on end, her teeth chatters, streams of tears streaming from her eye, wetting her cheek. She's horripilating and trembling, and there's a lump of emotion on the throat. She sometimes becomes completely stunned, maddened in ecstasy. And these things are bewildering to Krishna. Krishna is not able to understand how deep is the love of Srimati Radharani. How much can a devotee love Krishna? And why? Selflessly. When Krishna asks Radharani, what can I give you? Radharani says, only service at your lotus feet. So if Krishna gives her service, then he sees more devotion that she's displaying. And naturally, he feels like giving her something more. Then he asks her, what can I give you? She says, the result of service is more service. I don't want anything. I just want to be Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware Bhavatad Bhakti Rahaituki Twai. I just want to be connected to your lotus feet. This is the first desire. The second desire is, what are the qualities in Krishna that Radharani gets attracted to? Is it his threefold bending form? Is it his lotus petal-like eyes? Is it his soft, soothing voice? What is it? Karna Nandi Sanarma Ramya Vachanam, Kaviraj Goswami describes. Kotindashi Tangika. That is it this soothing voice of Krishna? Or is it the rejuvenating, relaxing glance from his sidelong eyes? Is it his flute playing? Is it his peacock feather? Are his jokes attracting her? What about Krishna is Radharani attracted to? This was the second desire. And Krishna would ask these questions, and Radharani, out of humility, she would say, Premera swabhav e premera sambandha. Na prema gandhosti. I don't even have the scent of prem. So naturally, Krishna now doesn't get an answer from Radharani. So he wants to experience it himself. What qualities about Krishna is Radharani getting attracted to? And the third is when Krishna reciprocates to Radharani's devotion. How does Radharani feel? Does she feel, I am doing so much service, but he's not able to reciprocate? Is that what she feels? Or does she feel grateful? Does she feel very happy? Krishna has said very proudly, Ye yatham mam prapadyante tam sthataiva bhajamyaham. I can reciprocate qualitatively and quantitatively to every devotee. But Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes, Pratigya bhanga hoila radhikar bhajane. By the bhajan of Radharani, Pratigya was bhang. Pratigya bhanga hoila gopira bhajane. By the bhajan of the gopis, Krishna's pratigya that I will reciprocate was broken because he couldn't reciprocate. So these three desires Krishna had in his heart. And when Radharani agreed to give her mood and complexion to Krishna, and Krishna could experience it now as Mahaprabhu, when Krishna understood in Krishna Leela that this gift that you're giving me, O Radharani, I can't ask this to anyone else. Can Brahmaji answer the question of Krishna? Can Narayana answer this question? Can any other devotee in Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali, in any planetary position answer these questions of Krishna? Will anybody have the power to explain the love of Radharani in her heart for Krishna and the emotions that she experiences when Krishna reciprocates and what specific qualities in Krishna she gets attracted to? Nobody except Radharani can. So when Radharani agrees to offer her devotional mood and complexion to Krishna, Krishna becomes completely indebted. And this is why Krishna says, Na parayeham nirabatya samyujam swasadhu krityam vibudha yama bhajandur jarageha shrinkhalam samvrichayat tat pratiyatu sadhuna. Oh Radharani, I'm completely indebted. I am completely indebted for what you have given me, and I will never be able to reciprocate. Even in the lifetime of Brahma, I will not be able to reciprocate to you. When I played the flute, you left everything and everyone in the middle of the night, coming to the middle of the forest just to seek out and search for my association. Krishna said, I can't do that. I can't leave Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba, and I can't leave even a calf. What to speak of those in Braj? Even someone in Kali Yuga in the material world, if they're starting to chant and they go off track and they get distracted, Krishna said, I can't even leave them. And the best example is Putana. I couldn't leave. Putana said, Sa muncha muncha alam iti. She said, oh child, please let me go. And Krishna said, my nature is not to let anybody go. Once I embrace, that person becomes mine forever. So Krishna told Radharani, you can leave everyone and come for me, but I can't even leave one devotee for you. So I'm in debt. There's nothing that I can give you. What can I give you? Can I give you material enjoyment? Can I give you liberation? Can I give you bhakti while you're sitting on the mountain peak of love? What do I have to give? Therefore, O Radharani, may your service to me and may I accepting that service be the only reciprocation we have. I don't have anything else in my possession to give you. Imagine if someone takes $5 million from someone and then later comes and apologizes and says, please forgive me, I will not be able to return that money because I don't have that money. And imagine that donor, that rich landlord who gave that $5 million. Let's say he says, never mind, no problem, I forgive you. You don't have to do anything. So what will happen? Let's say you take $5 million from him with the promise that I will reciprocate. I will return it with interest. And then we realize that we are broke. We can't give it back. If you go and tell him that, please forgive me, I will not be able to return. And the person says, no problem. I didn't even expect you to return. It's yours. Don't worry. So what will happen? Two things will happen. We'll walk around telling from house to house, this person is such a great person. You don't know his glories. Only I know his glories. I took money from him and I promised I will return. I will reciprocate with interest. But then I realized I can't. So he forgive me. What will we do? We'll go around telling people the glory of that person. And at the same time, we will wait for an opportunity to serve that person. Not just alone. We will even take our family with us and say, you have forgiven me for not being responsible to pay you off. But any service at home, I can be your slave. I can bring my parents. I can bring my children. I can bring my brothers. I can bring my whole family to serve you selflessly. These two things we will do. We will talk good about that person to everyone. And we will wait for an opportunity to serve that person selflessly. When Krishna told Srimati Radharani, Na parayeham in the Bhagavatam, I will never be able to reciprocate for the gift that you have given me of devotion. And especially you ready to offer your mood of devotion to me with your complexion. I will never be able to reciprocate. Radharani said, no problem. I am just doing this to give you pleasure. I don't have any expectation from you. When Krishna heard that the person from whom he had taken that as a loan has forgiven, Krishna said, oh Radharani, I promise you, I will do these two things. After I take your mood, I take your complexion, I take your devotional sentiments, your heart, I will do these two things. I will walk from house to house, telling everyone how great you are. This is why when Krishna came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he started preaching about Radharani to everyone to repay the debt, to tell everyone how great Srimati Radhika is, Srimati Radharani is, from whom he took the great arms of her complexion and her mood. So Krishna said, I will go and tell everyone about your glories. This is why when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, the Acharya writes, Jadi Gauranga na hoito, tabe ki hoito, kemone dhari tamde, राधार महिमा प्रेम रस सीमा जगत जानात के यदि गौरांग ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मने धरी तामदे. That if Mahaprabhu wouldn't have come, who would have known about Radharani? Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima, Same thing. So he came and started, Mahaprabhu distributed the glorious names, forms, qualities, pastimes, and deities of Radharani. You can see in other sampradayas, it's only Krishna standing. But Mahaprabhu came and started giving Radharani to all those Krishnas who were alone. So Krishna, as step number one, when he was forgiven by Radharani, that you don't have to pay. What did Krishna do? He came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and spoke to everyone the great qualities of his master, Radharani. And the second thing that Krishna did is what we would do. When someone from whom we have taken a loan forgives us, we will walk in with opportunities to serve them, not just alone, but we will take everyone with us to find more and more servants for that person. Therefore, when Krishna came in this world as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave Krishna Prem so freely to everyone, because that's like the identity card. That's like the identity card which we will need to enter Vrindavan to serve Radharani. Krishna himself takes opportunities to serve Radharani and comes in this world as Gauranga Mahaprabhu only to scout more and more and more personal servants to the lotus feet of Radharani. This is why it is said, Radharani's, Mahaprabhu's greatest gift was Radha Dasyam, servitude to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. Because two things, Krishna is spreading the glories of his master Radharani everywhere as Mahaprabhu, and second, coming here, giving everyone Krishna Prem and scouting more and more associates and more servants so that they all can enter Vrindavan and serve Radharani to remove the debt from Krishna's heart. So Krishna himself is taking an opportunity to serve Radharani. So many times we can hear Krishna's massaging the lotus feet of Radharani, sometimes even painting the lotus feet of Radharani, sometimes even crying and asking for forgiveness at the lotus feet of Radharani, taking opportunities to serve Radharani. यद किंकरीषु बहुशा खलु काकुवाणी नित्यं परस्य पुरुषस्य शिखंड मौले तस्य कदा रसनिधे वृषभानुजाया तदकेली कुंज भवनांगन मार्जनिस्याम. Sripad Prabodhananda Saraswati says Krishna is always eager to serve Radharani, to reduce his debt. And because he needs more help, he comes in this world as Mahaprabhu, and through preaching, he is recruiting more and more servants in the camp of Lalita Sakhi to serve the lotus feet of Radharani. So as we discussed, the 4 points that we discussed today, we said the first point, Mahaprabhu's heartbeat is the preaching outreach movement. He has special connection and special love, soft corner for the preachers. Even Krishna has said in the Gita, Ya idam paramam guhyam madbhakteshu abhidhasyati bhakti mai param kritva mame vaishyasi asamshayam. That those who spread this sweetness of Krishna consciousness are very dear to me. So this is the first point. Second point we mentioned, as we are involved in outreach, we should not forsake our personal relishment. The third point, as we indulge in this or we involve ourselves in the process of preaching, we should be completely selfless and give all credit to our superiors, like we saw so many examples that we quoted. And the fourth thing, the heart, the internal mood of preaching on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so that more and more devotees, they can come and join hand in hand from the camp of Krishna to serve Srimati Radharani so that they can reduce the debt, the feelings that Krishna has in the heart. So, in this way, Krishna personally becomes a servant to Radharani and recruits more and more servants as Mahaprabhu to the lotus feet of Radharani because Krishna feels indebted that, oh Radharani, what you have given me, what you have given me, nobody can give me. The gift of your loving devotional service and the gift of your golden complexion. So, in this way, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us that through external outreach, we are actually in reaching the heart of Radha and Krishna. So, having said that, I would like to pause here, and there are some questions, it seems. So, we will take and try our best to address them. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Such a beautiful presentation, Prima. You always leave us mesmerized by your ability to connect Krishna consciousness at such a deep level. We have a few questions. I hope you still have some time.
Sure.
So we have Jivika Bhardwaj from our YouTube channel, and she asks um, just a very personal question here. She says, I feel very insecure and competitive when I see my fellow devotees getting ahead in bhakti.
Hmm.
What kind of suggestion, or how could she? The very fact that she's asking this question is that she does not want to live with this feeling. She wants to be supportive.
Hmm.
And in continuation, she's saying, I'm never satisfied in bhakti. What to do?
Actually, bhakti is a process where we should feel satisfied but not satiated. Material life, on the other hand, it's very interesting that our quest for satisfaction never ends. We never feel satisfied and we feel satiated. That's enough. I can't do it this more. But bhakti is exact opposite. You feel satisfied at every step, but you never feel satiated. You want to do more and more and more. So we always have to understand that there are three kinds of people we will deal with. There will be those who are new to Krishna consciousness, and then there are those who are equal to us in Krishna consciousness, and then there are those who are way ahead. So Narad Muni has said, Dayaya sarvabhuteshu santushtya yena kenava sarvendra upashantya cha tushyati ashu janardana. That the process of pleasing Krishna is very simple. Those who are innocent and new to Krishna consciousness, like kalpavriksha trees, we give them shade and we protect them from, let's say, the heat of other conceptions. And those who are equal to us, we share the fruits of our realization and we are very eager to accept it. And those who are better than us, instead of feeling competitive or feeling envious or feeling in some way that, how is it that they went ahead, we should stand under the kalpavriksha tree of their loving shade. We should be eager to learn from them because we can gain so much. We are losing an opportunity to make advancement with this feeling. So we should pray to Krishna. We should sincerely pray. And in our mind, we should always think that this person is better than me. What can I learn from that person? What is that good quality in that person which I'm yearning for? And how I can gain that in their association. So by this feeling, Ishware tad adhineshu balisheshu dvishatsu cha prema maitri kripopeksha yah karoti samadhyama. The 11th canto Bhagavatam describes this is the mood of a Madhyamadikari. He loves Krishna, Ishware, tadadineshu, to those who are advanced. He serves them menially. To those who are equal and those who are less fortunate, he befriends them. And those who are not interested, he keeps safe distance. So if we follow these principles, then Krishna will have mercy on us.
What a beautiful. I absolutely love what you just said, especially in terms of, in Krishna consciousness, you are always satisfied but never satiated. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very, very inspirational. We have Nidhi uh, from our YouTube channel that's asking us, she wants to confirm one thing, that Guru Nanak Dev took initiation from Nityananda Prabhu or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is there any reference of that or anything that you've read or heard?
Nothing that I have read or heard about. So I would not like to comment without a reference. But definitely, Guru Nanak Ji is a very great Vaishnav. His conclusions, his texts are complete and perfect. So definitely, he has a very, very, very great spiritual master. Now, who that is, I'm unaware.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Now we have another question, and here he's asking, as one progresses in Krishna consciousness, we may find many controversial, bewildering issues even within our society, within Prabhupada's movement, many fractions, many camps, different understandings of tattva. So, as a neophyte devotee, sometimes it's perplexing, it's confusing, and sometimes we begin to judge and make take sides, or how do we see these things, and in what light should we continue a path in Krishna consciousness?
जाओ भागवत पढ़ो वैष्णवेर स्थाने एकांत आश्रय करो चैतन्य चरणे चैतन्यर भक्तगण नित्य करो संग तथापि जानीय सिद्धांत समुद्र तरंग. Swarup Damodar Goswami has said the way by which we can understand everything in proper conclusion. Jao Bhagavata Podo Vaishnavera Sthane. First of all, study Bhagavatam, but under the guidance of a great soul. Because many times we can read Shastra on our own, on an intellectual, on a very analytical approach on our own. But that may not be the essence of what's being conveyed. Like, for example, we can get into a kitchen which has 10 different ingredients. And the best that I can make is the best of my ability. Like, I'm a very poor cook. So you give me anything and I'll just make khichdi. And that too, it's, tasteless. Only Krishna and myself, Krishna can compromise and try to tolerate my cooking. But the point is, when there's a kitchen with 10 ingredients, the best that I can eat is the best of what I can cook. But let's say if I have someone like Radha Vallabh Prabhu or some exalted cook enter that same kitchen with those same 10 ingredients, now I'm going to taste the best of his ability. So Srimad Bhagavatam is like a kitchen. The verses of Srimad Bhagavatam are like different ingredients. And if I enter that, I'm going to catch the best of my intellectual ability. But if I let a very great Vaishnav enter, then I will taste the best of his ability. And he has tasted the best of his superior's ability. So therefore, Swarup Damodar Goswami says, Jao Bhagavata Pado Vaishnavera Sthane. The best way to understand Bhagavatam is at the lotus feet of a very great soul. Then there is no confusion of Siddhanta. Siddhanta baliya chitte na karo alas, iha hoite Krishna lage sudrida manas. All the Siddhanta will come in the heart just by being in the association of a great soul and hearing from him. And with this, tathapi janiya siddhanta samudra taranga. Swarup Damodar Goswami has said sometimes there could be contradictory statements in the scriptures. They seem contradictory. They aren't. They seem contradictory. Tarko apratishto shrutaya vibhinna nasa vrushiryasya matamna bhinna dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena katasya pantha. Same point, that we understand different fractions, different thoughts, different takes, and different viewpoints on the basis of one exalted Vaishnav that we have complete trust and faith in. Because they can have different opinions also. Spiritual life is variegated. Radharani and Chandravali both are exalted. They are dancing on the terrace of Krishna Prem. And they have different viewpoints, right? Radharani is called Madhu Sneha and Chandravali is called Ghrita Sneha. Chandravali is like ghee and Radharani is like honey. They have different characteristics altogether. Can we take sides on who's right and who's wrong? Yes, like Gaudiya, we can say, yes, Radharani. But Chandravali's camp is going to say Chandravali. So that same spirit is seen here. It's not wrong. Spiritual life is very colorful, variegated. Different people may have different opinions about things. So even acharyas may sometimes have different takes on a certain point. So what we should do is, instead of munde matim bhinna, Shastra says, if you go and ask 7 billion people, they'll have 14 billion opinions. So we should surrender to one Vaishnav, very great Vaishnav, whom we have complete faith with intelligence that he's advanced, and Vishrambhena Guru Seva, with our heart we have affection for. We know he is advanced and he will not cheat me. So be in the association of such a great Vaishnav and ask him. And as he reveals, Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita, instead of me trying to catch, let me put myself in such a way that instead of being a baby monkey catching the mother, Let me just meow like a kitten so that the mother cat can hold me.
Absolutely brilliant, Prabhu. I totally mesmerized by your answers that I even forgot to look for the other questions. But so beautifully and maturely you have described this and answered this question so thoroughly. We're going to take one more last question here. We're receiving a lot of gratitude and thank yous on our both our channels. Um, we have someone over here asking us what is the significance of applying tilak.
Well, many things can be mentioned. One very significant point that we can mention is that we always hear is that the upper part is actually the lotus feet of Vishnu and the lower part is the Tulsi. So we are always trying to be God conscious that the lotus feet of Vishnu, which is touched with Tulsi, is the aim because it's the Agya Chakra. This is the point of our meditation. So you want to keep your focus there. So that's one understanding. But from a Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective in Vrindavan, we can see that these are the two parallel lines, right? So this is Radharani and this is Krishna. And in the presence of Jatila and Kutila, they never meet. So they are parallel lines. They don't meet. They find it very difficult to meet. But if they try to meet, it's very difficult. It's a long struggle, long struggle, long struggle, long struggle, long struggle, long struggle. By the blessings and the arrangement of Brinda Devi, who's Yogamaya, they finally meet. Radha and Krishna finally meet by the blessings and the arrangement of Brinda Devi. But for us to enter this Leela, you have to take it from the middle, which means Anyabhilashita Shunyam. Other material desires, when they are taken out, and the meeting of Radha and Krishna in Vraj is our focus, oh, then that is what tilak all over the body. To say that I am living and breathing with this focus, this is what I want to achieve.
Absolutely brilliant, Prabhu. I simply by listening to you, I remember, um, this beautiful pastime of when Dhruva Maharaj is trying to offer prayers to the Lord, and he simply touches his forehead with a conch shell. I I almost feel that Krishna has literally touched your forehead with his conch shell, and you're able to so eloquently describe these wonderful pastimes of Krishna. And I hope you continue to inspire us with your deep, sincere study of Srimad Bhagavatam and inspire so many devotees. You're setting such a wonderful example, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much, deeply from our hearts. I see that there is another question. If there are a few more questions, I apologize if I missed a few, but if you're okay with taking another one,
Sure.
um, I want to know that what to do during book distribution when we meet some hardcore envious people who are trying to convince us, but we get affected by them.
His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu was once mentioning, since it's book distribution, I'll go straight to the Acharya. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu was once mentioning that irrespective of how people treat us, whether they take our book or they argue with us or they don't take our book or they neglect us, we just want to be nice to them and leave a good impression. He said a personal remembrance from his personal interactions that he has had. He mentioned that once he was doing book distribution and there was one lady, or I think one Prabhu, he was trying to speak to, and that person said, "No, I'm not of this faith, so I don't want to take your book." But His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu did not just say, "Okay, so you go your way, I'm going my way." He paused and he was just so nice and so loving and so kind to him. He spoke, "Doesn't matter, you don't have to take my book, but I just want to be friend. I just want to be talked, I just want to talk to you. Where are you from? What do you do? And I wish you all the best. I really want, I want you to be happy. I wish you and your family all well-being." And the person walked back, and then after about 30 minutes, he came back and he said, "I don't believe what you all practice. I'm from a different faith. But just the fact that you were so kind to me in this world, in this generation where there's cutthroat competition, everyone wants to talk to someone only when there's a hidden agenda. But I told you, you coming to distribute a book, and I said, I don't want your book, but you still had, you knew that I'm not going to give you anything, no monetary gain, but you were still so kind to me. He said, just for that, I want to take your book. So I'm remembering this to say that His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu said, even if people don't take the book, we are representing Srila Prabhupada. If, let's say, we fight and argue and try to, get onto a tussle with them, and even if, let's say, we give them a book, we leave a very bad impression, because we are the face of ISKCON. We are the face of Srila Prabhupada. They may take our book, but for the rest of their life, they will remember ISKCON. This is the interaction that I had. But on the other hand, even if they didn't take our book, if we leave them with a good impression, that's all. That's victory. That's preaching. So even if we meet sometimes people who are trying to convince us the other way, or they are trying to argue, we want to bring out the best in ourselves and in them. When life squeezes a mango, what the mango gives out is mango juice. So we want to be mangoes. Even if we are squeezed during our service, what should come out is not hatred and envy, but what should come out is mango juice of devotion. So ultimately, there's nobody envious. Everybody belongs to Krishna. So the devotee sees this, that Krishna is so kind that I am like sugarcane juice. And Krishna is bringing this devotee in front of me only to crush, so that the sweetness of Krishna consciousness can come out. He sees everyone as sent by Krishna. There's no one envious ultimately. Everyone belongs to Krishna. They know or they don't. Maybe 50 lifetimes ago, I would have been in that situation. A book distributor would have given me a book, and I may be the envious guy. But by his kindness, now I'm getting the fortune of distributing books. So maybe if we share that good fortune, next life, that person will distribute books. So it's just an opportunity. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We've come to the end of our session, but we're so grateful for your time and your sincere, thoughtful, and complete answers. So thank you again. Thank you for your presence, your time, and everything. Um, our gratitude to all our guests that have joined us today on all our channels, and your comments, your encouragement, your questions are all very enlivening. Please keep them coming. Join us back again tomorrow for yet another session in our Every Town and Village Gaur Purnima series up until Gaur Purnima. We eagerly look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, our Facebook and YouTube pages. Subscribe to the gbcspt.com, where you can be updated about all our upcoming events. And with much gratitude, thank you so much, Amarendra Prabhu again.
Thank
Srila
you, Mother.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.